Oh, well, good for him.
Yeah.
Dream high, right? You don't want to shoot low. You want to go high, right? Our YouTube should be up and ready. Oh, and there it is. We are live. We'll put that on pause.
Interesting. It didn't say recording has started.
There it is. No, it is. All right, now we're going to go to the cloud.
That's the thing I was talking about.
There we go. Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, January 6th, and it is time for the 94th, I can't believe it, edition of the Prove It Live podcast. We have a jam-packed show for you today, talking about not only why would you do that, but there's also why wouldn't you do that? Maybe you should do that. Some things you should never do. So we got a couple of those, maybe some other baseball talk thrown in there. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my very handsome co-host, who is again decorated in red, white, and blue, Mr. Mike, red, white, blue, and ginger, Mr. Mike Frary. Michael, take it away.
Thank you, sir. There is no visible ginger in the screen, just
Well, I did see you without your hat on.
Well, that's a gift I'm not willing to share. Maybe if everyone behaves themselves, I'll give everyone a little gift to take the hat off for a second. But yeah, and I'm excited about today's show. I am Mike Frary from the Farm Baseball Performance Institute, along with Dr. Kevin McGovern from Perfect Motion Sports Therapy, and Benjamin Bills, and a very fluorescent and blue, bright office at the Farm Baseball Performance Institute.
Hey now.
So excited. So we're going to kind of get right into it today. There's no real interesting top of the orders to speak of anyway. There's the NFL playoffs. You want to know who's playing, look it up, Google it. They're down to 4 teams. So one thing I wanted to start, because I thought it was really interesting. And so this shows a bit of a episode long, why would you? We're going to talk about a few different topics and what's wrong with them, what's right with them, so on and so forth. The first one, Kevin, I want to talk about is so you had a bit of I would say it was a Twitter exchange, but it really wasn't an exchange because it was just really you making a comment about something. So why don't we kick off with that and share that, because I'd like to get into that.
Yeah, it was actually a Facebook reel. So I guess those can start anywhere from Facebook or from Instagram. And it was, I'm going to say it. It was Tom House and the National Pitching Association talking about, and I'm always have a baseball here, but I don't have one on my desk, taking essentially the baseball and telling the kids, these are young kids, to take the ball when we're throwing breaking pitches. Now, it didn't say how old the kids were, but they were definitely not of high school age, and putting it all the way back in the web spacing of your hand and gripping the ball as hard as you can. In my opinion, there can't be any more dumber advice than that. Okay. Number one, that is going to fire up all of your flexor and extensor tendons of your wrist, right? So that means when they are contracted and the arm is coming through the pitching motion, they got to slow down. So you fired them up. So instead of them being a passive movement where we just have this like whip at the end of our hand, now we're creating resistance against our trunk.
I think you mean whip.
Whip. So with that, the premise of this was actually not only saying this is a technique, but this will save your elbow. This is healthy for your elbow. Okay. So their big kick is arm care this year. That's what they're talking about. I got to say, I don't see how that's helping your arm. That would be exactly the opposite advice I would give any kid. You should hold the ball like an egg. You want your arm to be a whip, to be generating power through your legs, trunk, and core, never through your arm, because your arm is moving to decelerate the body. So when you fire it up in a concentric equation, meaning we're making the muscle shorten, so just to review, there are 3 types of muscle contractions. There are concentric, the beach muscles. Isometric, meaning I'm pushing against them, the fibers are staying at the same length, and eccentric, meaning they're staying together and lengthening at the same time. That's deceleratory. So the pitching arm is moving eccentrically during the pitching motion. So all of this heavy ball, all this stuff that's doing stuff throwing backwards and working concentrically, you're working opposite of what the arm is intended to do. And then to do it to work and throw things heavy forward, you're actually pumping the brakes and working on the brakes. So if someone had a good understanding of actually what muscle physiology does and kinesiology of the arms, you wouldn't do half the stuff that's out there. But in no sport, in anything, baseball, tennis, are we gripping something as hard as we can? That's never been an instruction anywhere because you want the whip of your arm to move. Where that came about, I have no idea. Of course, I wasn't the only one who was outraged. There was a whole bunch of comments. There was actually the only comments that I saw were ones being like, "What are you doing?" And of course, I'm like, "You need to explain this. You need to explain it." I posted 3 times, no explanation. So at midnight, I got on my own social media platform and said, "Stop. Don't do this. If you hear that, it's wrong. If someone is trying to tell you to do that, make sure that they have a textbook in front of them and they've got a scientific reason why they're telling you to grip and squeeze the ball as hard as you can, because in my 28 years of clinical practice, the answer to do that is 0, never."
So this is something that like I can remember like little league coaches telling me that was bad. Now we talk about all the time about how, especially as information gets down to the lower, more basic levels, that it's often, old or bad information.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of the ones that like has never, throughout my years, I've never found or heard even a contrary point to that or a reason to that. So like that's one that's been pretty consistent.
It's like, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west.
Right.
That's it.
Right. So it makes all the sense in the world, right? I mean, you don't have to be a scientist to understand, like because I was always told is when you see your knuckles, when your knuckles turn white, you're gripping too hard. And when your knuckles turn white, that's when all of your ligaments and tendons are all like locked up. You get them all locked up. And so when you're trying to, like you said, whip it or whip your arm through with everything tense,
you want a pliable tendon, not something that's already, I mean, it makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's like taking an elastic band, stretching it all the way, and then like doing this to it rather than like doing it while it's, relaxed. Right.
Yeah.
It makes, so let me ask you, so, NPA, Tom House, very, very highly regarded in the pitching world, right? I mean, it is what it is. He's very highly regarded. So why? Like what? I know that, I think he brought up before, like he has is it a PhD or a BA or something like that? But not in kinesiology, right?
Yeah, it's like an MBA, which if you look at some of his stuff, he just has doctor or master's degree. He doesn't say exactly what. So to me, that's already being deceptive. Like, just tell me you got an MBA, right? That's great. Good. So again, he's Xerox. He's Xerox. Right place at right time.
So why do you think, like, where is this coming from? Like, why would someone like you, wouldn't you figure that he has to know, just being in the baseball world, this is a pretty simple thing. Wouldn't he know that this is not a good thing for you? Or do you think he's intentionally just trying to be, outside the box or conscious? Then we talk about Dr. Mike Marshall, right? Because he used to have awesome stuff, amazing stuff. He was an actual doctor, PhD in kinesiology, and he had some great stuff. But then once people started agreeing with him, it's like he didn't like being in the mainstream. So he started getting kind of crazy.
So, this could go back to analytics, right? It depends what you're measuring, right? So I know he's hooked up with some measuring company, this Team Mustard. I don't know what they're measuring, right? Yeah. But if you're trying to measure, I don't know, shoulder strength or whatever you're measuring. Yeah. So if I go to curl something, right, I go to pick up, this end dust here, right? And I
just got
loosely grab it, lift it, as opposed to grabbing it and lifting it, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, if I grab it and lift it, I've got more force on this, right? I'm squeezing it harder, so I've got more muscle recruitment. So are they measuring that? And then some bean counter said, yeah, let's squeeze the ball because all these muscles turn on. But when you're throwing a ball, it's like strumming a guitar. Do you take the guitar and twist all the strings as hard as you can, then strum on it as fast as you can? What would happen? The strings would pop. Yeah. Same thing with the tendons of your arm. It doesn't. Some of the stuff makes sense. Why are you telling kids to purposely drag your back foot but then you're saying in the same sentence, you're saying we need to get transverse plane trunk rotation. So the trunk's got to turn. How is the trunk going to turn when I'm anchoring my leg to the mound? Explain that to me. The answer is it doesn't.
It's like you're trying to move in a linear plane and rotate on an axis at the same time.
It doesn't. So I don't know, because I can tell you why. No one questions. No one. Just, again, why do we continue to do A, B, and D? Why did someone tell you that you have to wear a cloth mask with holes all the way out, pointing over here? Okay, because someone said, "Oh my God, it's stopping COVID." If you looked at it for 2 seconds, you'd be like, "Well, how is that protecting me when I've got all of this holes in it?" Or I go to CVS and there's a 3x2 plexiglass plate just in front of the cash register, but it's 6'3", my face is over it, but somehow that piece of glass, which is still up today, is protecting people. No one questions now. I think we're in a world where we're all into our own self, right? We're just look at your athletes now. We're all into our own self. Kids today are not, it goes the whole big generational thing. We're just 355 million individuals that question nothing, that just do. Because if it doesn't affect them or doesn't bother them, a lot of it's robot. Yeah, we're just going to do what we're told. No one questions.
So Ben,
all right, back on point a little bit. There's a new thing that's going around. It's not new, but it's big. It's taking over, and maybe you can explain it to me, Kevin. Is the grip strength that every college team is passing out to their pitchers, where, hey, my initial grip strength at the beginning of the game was 160 pounds. 3 innings later, it's 130 pounds, and now my coach is taking me out of the game because my grip strength wasn't strong enough. Where does that come into play, and what is that all about?
So that's a great question. So the grip strength is not coming from the hand, right? Grip strength is coming from the nerve, artery, and vein that start up in your neck, right? And go down your arm, right? So if we've got a shoulder impingement, right? And if we're throwing so much that our muscles are atrophying and they're causing impingement, it's going to cause distal hand weakness automatically. So they're using that hopefully as a measure to be like, yep, you're taxed, when they should be saying, can you hold me strong here from your shoulder? But the dynamometer is going to give your lay person a number. They don't have to feel for it. So if they see that dip, it's a number, he's out. Whereas I would test someone up here where I know, yeah, you know what, you've just dropped 20% in your strength of your shoulder flexion. You got to come out.
Right, because I'm in the same boat as you guys, where my whole life I've never ever heard a single coach tell me to put the ball in the back of my hand. Right? I don't understand where the thinking is coming from there. But I do know that this whole grip strength thing is taking over the industry. And my question would be to Tom House is there a correlation between this grip strength thing going around and you starting to tell people to put the ball in the back so you can grip it harder? Is that where your logic is coming from?
Which would defy natural kinesiology, because we have to be strong from proximal to distal.
Right. So that's the closest guess I can take to where he's coming from, but it baffles me. It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the people out there who are on the arm strength kick. That arm strength alone is going to stop you from injuring your arm. That's false, right? Because the stronger you are doesn't mean the more stable you are. Doesn't mean the better mechanics you are. And again, if arm strength and velocity were directly proportional, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Hulk Hogan would be 1-2 in the major leagues for velocity, right?
So Coleman.
What's that?
Then Ronnie Coleman.
And Ron Coleman. Yeah, well Coleman can't.
He'd probably be first.
He blew out his glute, right? So I don't know if he'd be able to stand up and throw off a mound.
He's in rough shape right now. He's on the rebound. But no, I think part of it too is like there's nothing really wrong with gripping something strong, but it's the combination of gripping something so tightly and then getting your arm to move as fast as it can while it's like so tense. Because, and I know from a hitting perspective, like, yeah, you don't hit with your arms and your hands, right? But they do play a part. And so you do want strong forearms as a hitter, right? I mean, that's not, especially like, in order to control the bat head, it's really important. And the idea of like the idea of like throwing something like so tight, I mean, all you've ever heard was, hold a baseball like an egg, hold it like a live bird is another example I've always liked, right? So you squeeze too hard, you kill the bird, you don't squeeze hard enough, it flies away. So, all right, I think we got that. That's pretty much settled. And so we'll wait, obviously, with bated breath to see if he comes back with any reasoning, because I'd love to hear a counter argument if there is one, right? I mean,
I'm still waiting on the drag the foot, right? I'm arguing, like, they're even saying, oh, you got to you have to delineate on a perpendicular line in the mound and follow it, dragging your foot. I mean, drag is a physics coefficient, right? When we measure friction and we measure something, that drag is a part of the equation. So if we're trying to make something go faster, we want to take drag out of the equation.
Yeah, you want your boat to go faster, you pull the anchor.
Very simple. Yes.
Right? Pretty simple. You want to stop, you put the anchor in. Yeah. So sort of staying along the same lines, right? Because we see them all the time, everywhere, right? So the reverse throw has become sort of, right, Ben, would you agree it's sort of like part of an everyday type of pitching?
Yeah, it's almost it's like people, they've trademarked it, like where it's like, hey, this is something you have to do before, as your warm-up process, before throwing, you have to do this.
Yes. Reverse throws are a big thing. So you started talking about in the beginning, but so, and I guess you can talk about both of them. It's like, I don't know that we have the definitive answer of why. I honestly think a lot of it is it's monkey see, monkey do. That's one thing, right? So you see an exercise and you see, oh, Patrick Mahomes is doing that. Oh, Justin Verlander's doing that. And so you go, oh, it must be great, without doing any research on your own. It must be great. It works for him. I'm doing it. The other thing is, I think that there's because, we just pulled a couple more videos from social media today. They're all over the place. So people are so desperate, I think, to differentiate themselves that
100%
lost sight of like what the actual purpose is, and like to actually try to educate.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I'm a common sense guy. Ben, can you pull up a video of Mike Tyson punching backwards, please?
Yep.
In his sparring sessions.
I'll find it.
Can you have him punching back? Can you have Bruce Lee punching backwards?
It's on the dark. It's on the dark webs,
because they don't exist, right? Because the force is coming from the trunk and the arm is last. Anyone who's moving out here in the periphery doing this is backwards. Power comes from your trunk. If you had a guy with no arms and prosthetic arms, he'd still be able to throw a baseball, because the power comes from the core, not from you see no one talking about shoulder blade work. Very few. It's just all this other, because it looks good. Yeah, I'm gonna take this ball, and no one, and Ben has seen this, right? We can test Ben's strength, and I can put him on a foam roller and have him do 40 scapular depressions, right? But if we put him on video, it looks like he's doing nothing other than laying there. But when he gets up, his strength is going to be five times more, and he could probably throw a ball without any warm-ups. But that doesn't look cool on video.
So let me ask you this. So
when you have, in a world where you got 3 seconds, right, where someone's flipping along, like, oh, there's a jackass laying on the foam roller, that's doing nothing,
Right. So let me ask you this. Two questions. First is, do you want your decelerator muscles to be strong? A. B, if so, how do you strengthen those muscles?
Great question. So that's going to be a little bit of a kinesiology lesson. There are two different kinds of movements: open chain and closed chain, kinetic chain. So open chain is I'm throwing. My hand is connected to nothing. Closed chain is my feet when I come down from a rebound. So let's start with closed chain first. So I jump up in the air and my feet land. Yeah, I want those decelerators to be as strong and as fine-tuned as possible, because my entire weight is coming down through that knee, and I need to be able to pump the brakes. Open chain, I let go of the ball. So my arm I want is loose and as free as possible. My arm just bangs against my torso to slow down. If I fire my arm up, right, now I'm firing up against a trunk that is rotating, and big, it's kind of like rock, paper, scissors. Big muscles is going to break down the decelerators in an open chain movement. So an open chain, you want that open part to be the dry towel you just took out of the dryer and you're snapping somebody in the locker room. If it's wet and frozen that you kept in your trunk in January and tried to snap it, look how much how much more you've got to flick your body to get that towel to accelerate, and how much it actually does not accelerate because it's stiff and frozen. That's a quick layman's example I can give you.
So it's about being flexible and
in
pliable.
Different, right? But you've got to understand the different kinetic chains. Yeah, when you jump up for and come down, and you want to land on your pinky toe or your toe, yeah, you better have quads, groin, back extensors to be able to slow your body down to absorb that shock.
Right. Okay. All right. I like that.
Well, thanks, man. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Were you going to add something, Ben? I thought you said something.
No? I'm just taking in the science lesson.
It's good. Good. I hope you're taking copious notes.
Copious. That's a good. I like copious. Yes.
All right.
Copious.
So real quickly to sort of like, what you would do, right? If you were to give somebody like a Cliff Notes version of for lack of a better term, an arm care program, what would it look like?
So it would only have to deal with everything non-arm. Like take the arm like Lego pieces and take it off and put it to the side, right? Because a rotator cuff, we'll show you exercises in a few minutes from a physical therapist. There is only so much room in the shoulder, right? If you feel the top of your shoulder, you've got a bone there, right? There's only so much room in that shoulder, and we work on some of the exercises you see that are going to hypertrophy the rotator cuff. There's no more room for it to be, and you end up causing impingement. So we have to agree, and it's not Kevin McGovern, that the movement starts at the core. That's where our spinal cord is. That's where all power is generated. The 1-inch punch, it all starts here, right? Mm-hmm. So every muscle around the core it goes into arm care. Abdominals, pelvic floor muscles, groin, hamstring, back extensors, glutes. I mean, how many kids can't make a glute contraction? And then we talk about going up. We have scapular depressor muscles. You look at any kid now, you see their shoulder blades coming off their back like that. That is bad. Really bad. Okay. You've got to have scapular depression control of that shoulder blade, kind of like the bodybuilders used to be able to bounce up their boobs, boom, boom. You should be able to, with your traps, you should be able to go lower trap, middle trap, upper trap, bing, 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 up. And if you can't do that with your arm, we're starting the egg time run when you're going to be injured. Guaranteed. You have got to have control of that base, because your shoulder is a unique joint, and that's connected to another bone that's swimming in your back that's not connected to anything. But it has to have the same principle, meaning we have to have a stable pillar to rotate around, right? Mm-hmm. Like a merry-go-round. Same thing. That shoulder blade at some point has got to be stable to rotate that arm around. And if it's flying all over your shoulder blade, all over your back, because we don't have good scapular control, it's disastrous. And I've never, ever, ever in 28 years seen a spontaneous shoulder or elbow injury, meaning that doesn't have some or all component caused by poor scapular thoracic control. Never seen one.
So Ben, when you're banging out your like 75 reps of shrugs,
yep.
Do you feel your traps going in that proper order?
Well,
please tell me he's not doing shrugs. I will come to his computer and beat him.
Despite popular belief, I actually don't do shrugs.
Thank God.
So I wouldn't know. I have no idea. I've never done a shrug in the weight room once.
Never, ever?
Never.
Wow.
Thank you.
Never, ever.
I definitely shrugged back in my day.
I warned him within an inch of his life not to shrug.
Used to use the old. It's hard to say. The hammer strike bench presses and like straddle the.
Oh yeah, and then
a lot of the football players at college would do shrugs, but they would use the hex bar and stand in between and shrug that way. Maybe I'll try that, Kev.
You need wrist straps for those because you need to put so much weight on them.
So
if you have traps like me,
we talk about our upper trap, right, is defined as a over facilitated muscle in the body, meaning its main purpose. It's always on. Our main purpose is to hold our head up and our shoulders like erect, right? It's already doing too much work as it is. So why are you going to throw more oil in the fire? What is the purpose of wanting to wear your traps as long looped earrings, other than you look good on the beach.
I love the beach.
That's
Well,
fine.
That's fine. You
that's
can
a
do
strong pull, though. That's a strong gravitational pull for some people, you know.
But don't
They
be
have the Chris
using
Benoit
it.
traps.
Yeah, if you're an overhead throwing athlete and you're working your upper traps, you're shortening your career.
Yeah.
End of story. No, end of story. Completely provable by science, not my opinion. Because there's a ratio though. So the other thing is there's a ratio. It's called your scapular thoracic rhythm. Say that 5 times fast. For every 3 degrees, I move my arms in elevation. My shoulder blade has got to turn like a boat, depress towards the vertebral side and turn. 3-to-2 ratio. That's proven.
So now that I'm not an overhead throwing athlete, am I allowed to do shrugs?
You can do whatever you want, man. Just don't come to my office complaining about your arm hurts.
No.
From throwing, you are an overhead throwing athlete because as far as I know, you still got to throw batting practice to your players.
They can't touch me.
He's slowly transitioning to.
I wasn't going to say anything, but when I do come in your facility, and thank you again for letting me use it a couple weeks ago, and I see all the kids' names of their exit velocity, and then someone's name. It's kind of like the SAT question. What doesn't fit? Oh, Coach Ben Bills, exit velocity 107. Like, come on, man.
They gotta shoot high. They gotta aim high, right? Give them something.
All right, let's just going back, Mike, again, like you say, why would people do that? Here's an example of a physical therapist doing the exact. So I call these muscles, and everyone has seen these exercises, these external rotation, right? So when we talk about working out, when are you ever doing this? Maybe dealing cards, maybe if you got a job directing traffic, but there's no sport in the world that does this exercise right here with a towel underneath his elbow and doing external rotation and the pull. And then no one's doing it. There's not a sport, not one sport. So like this, not one sport. That's an example of a reverse throw. Show me how this is in a functional position, right?
Yeah.
Like just like the NFL, right? We complain, we can't get 5 guys to block for 5 seconds. Well, what's our measure of strength at the combine? Laying on your back and doing a bench press. Nowhere in the NFL are you ever laying on your back and doing a bench press. Ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
your feet are grounded and you're trying to push somebody. So the guys that do all this weight never pan out to being able to block anybody because it's not just your chest.
I remember like these were never like as I was growing up. These were never like a warm-up exercise. I remember bodybuilders doing these because they wanted to add the striations of the medial head of their deltoid, right?
Yeah.
And but that's what that was for. But it was never like, hey, this is to warm your shoulder, and that never made sense to me. But so there it is again. Like, but we have like these I don't even know what you want to call it, like this whole cache of like exercises, or if you want to call them stretches, that are just I dare anybody, you show up to a baseball tournament, right? There could be 7 fields at a facility. Every bullpen,
guy, right?
Every pitcher is going to be doing all the exact same things, like nonstop. So real quickly, and then because we'll just want to
when you pull up there, how many pitchers will you see doing squats? 0.
That's what I was going to ask you. So like what a pitcher goes into the bullpen, he's got 20 minutes, 25 minutes to warm up. What's a stretching routine that a pitcher might want to go through? Yeah,
no stretching, 0, right? This is what he does. Because you're tight as a result of not having stability of your spine. Your muscles first and foremost are protecting home plate. Get on a foam roller, roll off 100 scapular depressions with 5-second holds. Get on the bench that's out there, sit on that bench, and go from standing really quick to sitting down very slowly 100 times, pick up a ball and throw it. That's it. Those 2 movements, scapular depression and squatting, all this other stuff is not contributing to anything required for you to throw a baseball. What do we have to do to throw a baseball? We've got to be able to squat twice. We've got to be able to, we pick our leg up, we squat. As our leg comes down, we squat even further. And we need shoulder blade control. Focus on those 2 things. We don't need to direct traffic.
So is there anything to warming the body up, some like cardiovascular?
Yeah, or 100%. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. But I have had kids in my office that I will have them do scapular depression 100 times, pick up a baseball and throw it, max effort. And they're like, oh my God, my arm feels so good. Yeah. Because you just fired the muscles necessary for you to throw.
Yeah. Especially if your arm's going when it's supposed to, which is at the end.
Right.
And then you really don't
and
even need to warm up.
What's arm care at the end? The same damn thing you just did, but maybe 200 times. And if you're doing things, the days of doing things 10 and 15 reps are over. We're moving so many times a day, right? I mean, how many times am I moving here, right? So to make a change in the body, we're talking about doing scapular depression and a foam roller, minimum 300 times a day, 5-second holds, minimum. Squats, air squats, minimum 200 every day. And you do those 2 exercises, I guarantee this. Pick your best squat and your best, I don't know, bench press. You do those 2 movements, cut everything out. You do these 2 movements 300 and 200 times a day in 2 weeks. And I guarantee anything that you're doing in the gym, you're 20% stronger. Guaranteed.
Whew. Bold
Guaranteed.
statement. I like it.
Guaranteed. Someone take me up on it. Guaranteed. That's the only 2 exercises you have to do. If you do it for 2 weeks, I guarantee you're 20% stronger in any movement that you do in the gym.
All right. You heard it. All right.
You heard it.
All right. So we're going to move into hitting a little bit because we're going to show you a drill here. Kevin, you have it.
Let me see if I can get. Is it a drill or is it just him talking about?
It's the, it says Anna Claire something. Water bag stability. I wanted to talk about that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Let me find out.
So while Kevin's pulling that up, we've
I got you. Let me get my screen going here. Hold on.
Seen a variation of this before.
Dude, you got to see how many. So like in my trade magazines, you got to see how many of these things are trying. There must be
the hot thing now, right?
It's the hot toy. Even on my side, the things that you will see, it's insane. Can you guys see this now?
Yep.
It's a pretty sweet setup in their garage, though.
Yeah, it is.
I know, but again, like, so.
But I have immediate problems with it. Even her steps are like off. Like I don't know what she's trying to do. Well, there's a couple things. First of all, here's the first thing wrong with the setup. That net is way too far away. If you hit the ball straight into that net, that's essentially a ground ball. It's going to hit the infield at some point.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that. That's a good one.
And it's gonna bang up on your garage door.
She may have it away because she's doing this fakakta thing here, but who knows?
Could be, but I'm pretty sure she hits into that net in one of the other ones. But so this water stability thing is out of control. It is out of control. You're stabilizing what exactly? What are you stabilizing? You're putting weight on your shoulders that's unstable. You shouldn't be rotating your shoulders to begin with. And then you're adding a step. Now, she may be a softball player, and this technically could be a slash swing. And maybe that's what the foot works for. But do we not know how to put one foot in front of the other? Do we have to put water on our backs to learn how to do that?
So I want you guys to spend 2 seconds watching this, just her left leg, and pretend you're the meniscus in that knee.
Right.
Are you happy with that?
No.
Boom. Right. And then the knee going. So we talk about here closed chain. So now she's planted. You could see the wobble of her upper thigh, right? That kind of wobbles, and then it caves in now as she does that turn. How many times do you think the knee is going to like that before it says, you know what, enough with your stupid water bag? And she's got a patellofemoral issue, a kneecap issue, or she tears a meniscus.
It's amazing because, I'm sure everyone can relate, right? If you're carrying something heavy, and you got to be careful with how you step, because if you misstep even a little bit, you can tweak something so much more easily when you're bearing all this weight, and especially when it's an unstable weight like this. And but so,
go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, I would love to have someone come on and try to explain the benefit to that. And even if they could, I don't think there's any way anyone could justify that the benefit would outweigh the risk. If that's
would you agree that allegedly she looks like she's working on rotation?
Right, but out of sequence.
Right. So I go up against a heavy bag, take a short bat right up against it, and turn and smash the heavy bag in your batting stance. Like, why are you doing these stupid things to get rotation? Like, I don't understand. Like, why? And other than this, it's just for the reason why we started this show. So someone stops and goes, "Oh, look at that! Right?
Right.
What's that? That's shiny."
Well, there's another swing. I know you pulled that one down, but I actually want to see. There's two other swings. One of the two.
Let me see.
I
I'll
want you to
share
see.
it.
They call it a step back. I think it's a.
I'll share it. I'll share again for you.
Now this is a step back. I've never seen a step back swing done this
Oh,
way.
but notice how the net did not move. I
The net-
stand corrected.
That's right. Right. So we're practicing hitting ground balls.
Right into the garage door.
Yeah. That one maybe.
So she's stepping back with her front leg and hitting the ball.
Right. Right. So now there is a step back drill that I use sometimes. And again, this is the point of all this is, again, what we've talked about before is like the drill is just for the sake of doing drills. It's not, it should not be cookie cutter. Different hitters have different strengths, weaknesses. They have different issues that they need to work on. If we have a hitter that's having a hard time loading and keeping their back knee inside their foot and getting to sink their hip a little bit, then we might do, which, by the way, there's tons of kids at the youth level.
But then you're right, man. You watch the trajectory. So that's got to be what, 6-7 feet ahead of her.
Yeah.
You watch the trajectory of that ball. It's only 4 feet off the ground. It's not rising. That's a ground ball. It's a second or short.
Yeah. It's a ground ball. Yeah. That some of
right?
them, most of these they don't even reach the pitcher in the air. So that's another thing. We can talk about that all day.
1,351 views.
Right. And so in a step back drill, if, this is the hitter's back leg and they're having trouble not doing this and straightening up and getting to their way to the outside or the pinky toe side, a step back drill could be a good drill. You have someone, step back with the back foot, have their front leg come into it, land and rotate. It's good practice and good training for that. That's the only reason you would do it. That's the only reason you do it. And
that's coming from the softball. You know where that's coming from, right? That's coming from the softball side of your friend Joey Cuna. That's coming from the farm system, assistant hitting coordinator, content creator.
That brings a little more light to that because
Las Vegas, Nevada.
They want you to slide your back foot somewhere, but stepping back to this, like literally behind you, rather than stepping back as it relates to where the pitcher and the catcher is, completely different. One makes sense. The other one just doesn't. It doesn't do anything for you as a hitter. And it's too bad that you got all these kids out there spending all their time. I mean, like clearly this kid's a hard worker. She's got a setup in her garage. She's probably taken, dozens, if not hundreds of swings, per week, per day. And, just as a reminder, remember, every single rep is a rep towards that being your permanent movement. Because that's the whole goal, is to do these repetitions until they become muscle memory, because they become second nature and you have to think about it. And so just be careful what you're building into that muscle memory, because ultimately without the proper mechanics, it will catch up to you for sure. For sure.
All right. So before we go, I have a question for both of you.
Okay. Well, I got one more thing I want to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, so I see a lot of hitters not breaking their wrists after they hit the ball. So they hit and they continue that and do not turn them over. Is that a teach? And why would you do that or not do that?
Absolutely. So that's a great question and actually a pretty good segue to what I did want to talk about. So first of all, it's probably a teach. Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Naturally, you'd want to break your wrist and do it.
Yep,
right?
And some you're even told like to roll your wrists and to snap your wrists. You never want to roll your wrists. You want to keep your palm up and palm down, top hand, palm up, bottom hand, palm down, all the way through contact. Here's the ball. Let me get a bat. Now these are not to scale. Okay, it's the ball. Here's the bat. Now, if I'm rolling my wrists, this is also rolling. And so what happens is as this bat rolls, that's how you get topspin ground balls. No bueno. If, however, I can, without rolling the bat and stay through this ball, that's when I'm going to create backspin, and backspin creates lift. We don't want ground balls. Lift creates distance.
So you want to keep this the whole time, but even after you make contact with the ball, you're still doing that, or can you turn your wrists over?
Well, yes, but I mean, I don't know anyone who has the awareness that once it made contact. So you want to practice this way, because if I am, as the other thing is, if I'm not at perfect contact, I want to be here but maybe I'm fooled. Maybe I'm a little out in front, but now I'm here and I'm still making solid palm up, palm down contact.
Yeah, Alex
Gotcha.
Bregman talks about it on MLB Network, where he just tries to keep his top hand like level, like Mike was saying, as long as he can. I mean, through contact. I mean, yeah, find me a hitter that has the awareness that in that split millisecond, he's like, "Yep, just made contact, time to roll over." Like,
Yeah,
that would be pretty impressive, you know.
And almost impossible to teach.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly.
So one thing that I did see, and I'm going to pull it up, there's no need for you to pull it up. I did put it on the group text, but because it's not something we have to actually pull up. So credit goes to the guy, Derek Hall. I don't know who he is, but he says, drill with flips using a short bat with your top hand. Top hand work is relevant for dominant hand hitters. In other words, someone who bats right, throws right, bats left, throws left. But it's a must for cross dominant hitters. Left-handed throwers who bat righty and right-handed throwers who bat lefty. And I thought that was just such an excellent point because, we like to do bottom hand, top hand drills at our facility for our players. And because, it's the best way to get the kids to understand what bat path or hand path should be. But your top hand's your dominant hand typically, right? So if you're a righty, your top hand's your dominant hand. So that's what's going to control the barrel. That's why they often refer to it as the guide hand, right? Because that delivers the barrel, whether it's up, whether it's down, whether it's laying back, whether it's forward, whatever. We do see lefty, righties, righty, lefties have a bit of an issue with that because their dominant hand is typically their bottom hand. Okay. Now, a lot of those lefty, righties, righty, lefties, not surprisingly, a lot of them get good pop. They've got good power. Their bottom hand is their power hand, and it also is their dominant hand, right? Whereas the traditional righty, righty, lefty, lefty, top hand's your dominant hand, bottom hand's your power hand. For them, it's both. But that does leave, sometimes some struggles in the top hand path of those type of hitters. And it's a great drill because typically what you'll see is someone will get up there and they'll want to just swat it. Right. It's almost like they're taking a tennis racket and, if a ball's on the tee and you'll see the elbow drop and they come way around the barrel and they kind of just swat it. And obviously you don't want to do as a hitter. You want to keep your hands in tight. You want your elbow behind your fist so you can extend. And so a top hand drill specifically for left-handed throwers, right-hand batters, and vice versa, right-handed throwers, left-handed hitters is essential. I think essential. Do both. Do top hand and bottom hand because again, it's a great way to learn that path and I'll say it again. All we're trying to do is play chicken with the baseball, right? The ball's moving on a linear path, and we want to keep our barrel on that linear path as long as we can. So once our hips are turned all the way, all that's left is our hands to extend through contact. So anyway, just want to point that out. So that was why you would do that. I thought it was a great tip that was found on Twitter.
Cool.
That's all I have to say about that.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for listening. Again, if you want to contact the show, info@proveitlive.com. Please look at proveitlive.com on our website and our YouTube channel. Subscribe. We've got not only videos of the show there, but we've got some educational videos and we put up more as we go along. And that's all I got to say about that. So everyone have a good week and we will catch you later on the